I'm Keren Boiman. I'm CEO and co-founder of Bullseye, and I'm very, very excited to partner with the Philadelphia Women Who Code. This is our first event with Women Who Code in Philadelphia. And I'm more than happy to meet all of you and help you in your career journeys based on the research that we've done and the tools we've developed. Let me quickly share my screen. Can you see this? Perfect. Okay, great. So a little about us. My background, as Stacy mentioned, I have 20 years of 20 years of tech experience, mainly in program management and operations. I led the program management office at Intel AI, and my educational background is engineering, electrical engineering, and an MBA from Santa Clara University. And why I started all of this is when I relocated to the US over 9 years ago, even though I was an engineer with 10 years of experience, it was still very, very hard for me to look for a job, to land a job. It took me between 5 to 6 months. It was pretty demoralizing. I applied to quite a few job openings. I was probably ghosted by most of the job applications, the companies I applied to. And it really surprised me. Turns out I'm not alone. There are over 25 million job seekers, knowledge workers applying on every year looking for a job and going through that same process. Together with me is my co-founder, Oren, who's also my spouse. He comes with extensive entrepreneurship experience, successful entrepreneur who's built an AI company, led the company to 100 million users, which it was later acquired by Vimeo. He's a PhD in computer science and AI, so I'm very fortunate. Our agenda today, and by the way, as Stacy mentioned, feel free to stop me anytime with questions. I don't want you to hold off your questions until maybe you forget them or it's no longer relevant. Stop me at any time, or also put it in the chat. So in terms of what I plan to talk about today is based on extensive research I did as part of my MBA. It was a year-long research in which I talked with over 100 job seekers, recruiters, and hiring managers, learned about the inefficiencies, both in how we look for a job and the process itself, but also how employers look for talent and match talent with their needs. So I'll talk a little bit about the recruiter aspect of this. How do recruiters read or scan your resume? What are they looking for? And how can you help them? Then I'll talk about our approach, or somewhat of a different approach than the common one, to job seeking. Bullseye is all about accuracy versus the numbers game. So I'll talk a little bit about that. Then we'll talk about understanding what a good job fit is for a specific role based on analyzing the resume and the job description. And then I'll go over some tips in terms of resume template and how to tailor the resume each and every one of those sections. Make sense? Great. So let's dive right into it. Recruiters, you apply as a job seeker, you apply to many, many job openings, and many times you don't even hear back. So recruiters spend roughly 30 seconds on your resume. They have obviously the job description in mind, and they mentally scan your resume and look for how well they can check the boxes of how well you meet the basic qualifications and the preferred. So many job descriptions have some section that's called roles and responsibilities, and then it has basic qualifications and preferred. The basic qualifications is something that you definitely should aim for, to meet as many qualifications as you can, as many requirements as you can. And the preferred qualifications are, think of them as bonus points. Think of them as extra credit. That's what recruiters see when they scan your resume. That's exactly what they look for. How much of the basic qualifications does this candidate qualify for, and then how much of the preferred. And in order, think of it, if you spent 30 seconds on someone's resume, and think of it, they're reading it in piles of between 50 to 70 at a batch, at a single time. They are somewhat comparing one candidate against the other. So the easier you make it on them from a resume perspective, to read through, to scan through the resume and quickly understand how well you're a good fit for the job, the better job you're doing. So they're looking for as much as they can, quantified specific achievements versus generalized statements, right? Now, you think of the job description, not every job description looks the same, and they obviously don't have all the same requirements, even not the same order of basic qualifications and preferred. And that's why it's so important for job seekers to not use the generalized resume and apply across all job descriptions, but to invest some time, customize a resume to a job description to help the recruiter quickly, swiftly scan through and understand the value, what you bring to the table. So as I was saying, the common practice is typically to apply in the hundreds. An average job search takes, in normal times, not in today is even harsher times, but at normal times takes about 4 months to land a job, through that time, the job applicant applies to as much as 300 job applications, 300 job postings. And that's an average time, right? But not all of those 300, 400 job applications or job descriptions are a great fit. Many of them are not. And there is some thinking that if you apply in the hundreds, or if I've even heard about someone who applied to 1,000 job positions, that if you apply in the hundreds, then you'll get a better outcome. Obviously, that's not the case. Many recruiters I spoke with, they get, out of the 500 or so applications they get per job posting, they filter out most of them, maybe 80% of them, because they are completely irrelevant for the job. So applying to jobs, even if it's hundreds that are not a relevant fit for you, is not going to change the odds. But still, that's how people work it out. Our approach is different. We recommend a very accurate job search strategy, moving away from the quantity approach towards the quality approach, meaning being able to analyze, what is a good fit for me? What is it that I want to apply for? What are my interests? Where is this going to take me? Not just now, not just this specific role, but how is this going to prepare me for the next opportunity, for my next career move? The way to do that is conduct a job fit analysis, and I'll explain more about this in detail. Then use a very simple resume template. Why? Because this makes it very easy in the 30 seconds the recruiter reads your resume to communicate your value, to communicate how well your value is aligned with what the employer is looking for. Then also tailor the resume per job description, and use the STAR approach, which I'll elaborate more on, both for the resume, for customizing a resume, and both for answering questions in interviews. Any questions so far? Great. Okay, so job fit, why does it even matter? Why should you invest time in this? So I just brought like two specific researches that I came about. One of them is NACE, National Association for Colleges and Employers, and they talk about, obviously, employers favor candidates which demonstrate skills and experience that are directly related to a particular role, which explains why we have to tailor and customize the resume. But also another data point talks about meeting 60% of the job requirements doubles interview chances, the chances for a callback, compared to meeting only 50% of the requirements. So even just a slight difference of how well you meet the requirements for a job doubles your chances of getting a callback. So that's why it really does make a difference. But how do we even approach this? How do we even conduct a job fit analysis? By the way, a lot of resources and guides, step-by-step guides that I'm talking about are available on our website with much more, detailed explanation for you guys to dig into. But the gist of it is using a T-chart to conduct a job fit analysis. Now, how do you go about this? You have a job description, and again, you break this down to the essential requirements on the left-hand side, essential requirements, and the preferred. Now, think of it as each one of those requirements, they have the same weight. If I check the box, it's like I get maybe, depends on the calculation here, but say 10 points. Say I got 10 requirements, I get 10 points. And on the right-hand side are my qualifications. Am I meeting this or not? And the way that this analysis works is that I can only check boxes to say, yes, I meet this qualification, this specific one, if it's mentioned on my resume at any section around it, if it's a summary, if it's a skill section, or if it's my professional experience, it has to be mentioned. If I have that experience and it's not mentioned on my resume, I cannot check that box because I'm not communicating this to the recruiter, to the hiring manager. So I go about this. This is kind of just a quick example. Proficient in Microsoft Office, bachelor degree in business administration, 3 years of experience. And I mark down whatever it is that I have. I can actually read from my resume. Many people I've worked with, they read the job description. They think they know they're a great fit, but the resume does not communicate that. Yeah, I forgot to add this. I need to add that. That's the whole purpose of this analysis, of this exercise. Now, a good fit, based on the research that we've done and what the literature said as well, is a good fit is meeting at least 80% of the basic requirements, like getting an 80 or like an average of this, right? Should be an 80% of meeting the basic requirements. And the preferred requirements are the bonus points, or you get on top of this. This is an example of our software ran on one job seeker, an active job seeker. As you can see, this is essentially simulates the T-chart analysis. This is the list of requirements as it was picked up by the job description. And you see here the boxes that applicant does check versus some boxes they don't check. And the software is able to explain to you why you don't check, because obviously not enough evidence in the resume to convince me that you can check this box. And so they want bachelor's in science, and this person has a master in information technology and so, and then talks about verbal and written communication skills. Now, this person, many times people have those communication skills, both the written and the verbal. This is, by the way, a requirement that comes, job descriptions very often, but your resume doesn't say that. It doesn't articulate this. You're not showing me that you have this. How can you show, how can you explain that you have this written and verbal communication skills by adding another line that talks about weekly meetings you facilitated, presentations you gave to staff, how you presented to the project stakeholders, even if it's under your education, even if it's under coursework, talks about business communication, talking about presentation, facilitating conversations between stakeholders, reaching agreement, and, you know, presenting that to the next level, next stage. That all of this shows both written and verbal communication skills, and it's very important to articulate that. For example, here another example, experience in leading engineering teams and project. This person actually didn't have the title because he was an individual contributor, but he did lead engineering teams as a scrum master or product owner. So that again was not mentioned in the resume, so the software couldn't pick it up. So this is why, in terms of the process of how to go about this, you should run the job fit analysis using the T-chart and assume, again, equal weights for every requirement. And that tool helps you identify the gaps. Say, hey, you know, I do have this, but I'm not mentioning, or I don't have this at all. And maybe that's not a good fit altogether, this job for me. And then identify the gaps that you find there and add relevant information to the resume based on what you've discovered. Then rerun the job fit analysis. And if you hit the 80% mark of a match, then you apply and you actually have greater chances of being called back. Questions? All good? Okay, next we'll talk about.
Sorry, Karen, we do have, couldn't get off mute quick enough. We do have one question in the chat. It's, what is a good example of a good quantified specific statement?
Yeah, I'll go, I'm getting there. I'll go into that. Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah. Okay, so let's first talk about, now we know that, yeah, we need to analyze the fit. We need to apply to roles that are obviously a good fit for us, that we stand a chance, that we can present that both on the phone screen, both in the interview. Now look at what's a good template. But before that, even, let's talk about what's an ATS. So an ATS stands for Applicant Tracking System. This is a system employers use, and I'm sure you've heard of Workday, Greenhouse, and others. These are all applicant tracking systems in the simplified manner. What they do is they facilitate the interaction between the job seeker and the employer. You post the job description there, it uploads that to their website, and then all of the resumes and the applications they get, all the funny forms or the tedious forms you have to fill are all a part of the applicant tracking system. Then your resume gets into the system, and it's used to also gauge how fast, how well the applicant is going through the steps of the hiring process. I'm sorry. But there is a caveat to that, because an applicant tracking system, in most cases, what it tries to do is take that resume that you just applied with and extract relevant information for the employer so that they don't have to do this manually. So what they go about is they extract the name, the details, and so on, and then the profile, the work experience, break it down by year, by dates, by employer, the keywords, and the skills and all that, volunteering, background, and so on. So, but many times a too complex resume template is not servicing the job seeker right, because the ATS tries to break that down to extract the relevant information, but is stuck with that too complex of a template. And as an outcome of that, it's not able, because as you can see here, many columns or even two columns, many boxes, can't see that, it's in the background, but many boxes within here. And people are using services online for templates, and even paying a lot of money for that on a monthly subscription or to a resume writer, well, when you're sending this, your resume can be immediately rejected just because of this, because it's not able to extract the important and relevant information and shows as blank, and so you're immediately get rejected. You get this this email of not being a good fit for the role. And I've talked with people as a part of testing our product, talked with many job applicants, and many say, hey, you know, I applied and within 5 minutes, I get this email, this rejection email. How can someone even read my resume in 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Nobody reads your resume in 5 minutes. It's that ATS, which tries to handle the resume, break it down so that you don't have to type everything manually, but it gets stuck. So those all with pictures and all that are not a good example of a template to use. Sorry. What is a good example? This template, not as sexy as the previous ones, but something that is very easy, both for the applicant tracking system and for the recruiter and for the hiring manager, to be able to scan really quickly what is it that you bring to the table. It has the title, like your name and the role you're applying for, and your details, your contact information details, and the summary, which we'll talk about, skills section and bullet points, experience, relevant experience, education, projects, volunteering. And the education section will also go, their certifications will go there. And the projects are projects outside of the employer's experience that you have. Now, the ideal length for now that we've, sorry, so this is again the resume template, and now I'll go into each and every one of those sections and explain beyond the template, what do? You understand you're fit for the role, think you're a good fit, you got a high score on your analysis. Now, how do you take each and every one of those sections and actually tailor them for the job?
Keren, in your opinion, on the last slide, does the order make a difference in the order in which it's presented? There's a question on the chat around
the order.
Yeah.
Yes, the order does make a difference. Again, we've interviewed over 15 recruiters. This was the recommended order as well, not only the components of it, but also the order. Many people, they play with the skill section, put it down at the bottom, but this is, again, those 30 seconds that they spend on your resume, this is one of the key elements that they are looking for, the skills.
Would you
it's easy to, yeah.
Would you suggest if there's more, if it's the first time or a career changer, flipping where it's like projects and experience, flipping those sections? I think that was the specific question when you look at orders, like to get because they are possibly more project experience than work experience. Would you flip those sections?
I see. You mean projects that are not a part of being with an employer?
Yeah, it might be volunteer projects or school projects. So would you suggest moving them higher in the order?
Yeah, that could work. It depends on, again, how long it's pretty specific, because how long have you spent on the project, how critical in terms of duration that you spend here in terms of the projects versus the experience, right? If the projects were like, you know, few years, yeah, then that definitely makes sense. You'd think the order in which this is placed here, in which it's advised here, is the criticality and the relevancy for the role. Now, internships, I know that some people on the line are maybe right out of college or applying for their first time for their job, and internships go under experience, regardless if they're paid or non-paid. And many times I like to look at volunteering projects if they're, obviously they have to be relevant. I would not put here volunteering experience that is totally irrelevant for the job I'm applying to. Okay, if I was I saw someone put like swim coach experience for is volunteering or anything of that sort to and applying for full stack engineer. It's completely irrelevant. Yes, I performed this volunteering experience, but it's not something I should mention. It's not giving me any points in the recruiter's mind. Now, you think of a resume. A resume is a piece of real estate, and how you use that real estate is very important. What comes up at the top should be very different from what comes up at the bottom. You should imagine that if someone reads your resume, most of them will not read all the way to the end. So what's important to highlight has to come on top. That's why the order is so important. Okay. Yeah, so there could be an opportunity to switch the project and experience. It depends, but this is mostly the recommended layout. Now, if we look now on the summary statement, the summary statement, the ideal length would be somewhere 2 to 3 sentences, about 70 words. Should be using active language, verbs, and you need to think again. It doesn't work in a vacuum here. I go back to the job description and I envision the person and personality and the work environment. What is it that they're trying to get? What is this person? What are they? What's their tone? What's their background? And that's how I use this for the summary section. And I'll show an example. You talk there, avoid using I. You talk there in first person, implicit. An accomplished program manager, proficient with agile methodologies, so and so. An innovative leader in XYZ. Okay, a confident tone. Use as many cues as you can from the job description, both in terms of the language and the context to which it applies to. Now let's look at examples. These are elements to consider when I'm writing the summary section. So I should think about the job title and the work experience that they're looking for. So for example, in the job description, they say sales team leader, minimum 5 years of sales management experience. And so in this case, my tailored summary could look like, that's just one sentence, a sales expert, over 5 years of team leadership experience. So I'm aligning, the background I come with to what they're asking for. Also look at the context and the work environment. It's very different if I'm applying to a startup versus I'm applying to a corporate, in which the work environment is very different and they're looking for different personalities to fit in. So this sales manager in an early stage, fast-paced tech startup would look like, in the summary section, a passionate and hands-on sales manager with a decade in tech world startup environments, meaning this person comes like fully baked. This is exactly what I need as a recruiter when I'm reading this. They also mention along the job description, the education and certificates. They want a program manager, project management professional certification, bachelor's in electrical engineering. So I would say certified project management professional, the PMP, with a bachelor's in engineering. Okay, so and so. So when you compose this tailored summary section, take into account all of these elements and play with them in your summary. And this is, again, you'd have to go about this for every job that you're applying to. And be sure to mention the job title you're applying to as a part of this. Next, we'll look at the skills section. That's next up in line, if you recall. So there are a few steps to look into. First is identify the key skills from the job description. Okay, this is an example from a UX designer job posting, highlighting some of it is hard skills, such as you see here, specific tools, and some of it is soft skills, collaboration, multiple projects, communication, fast-paced. So I highlight these, and once I have I identified those skills, I choose which skills of them am I going to highlight. And I pick only the few, it doesn't need to be a comprehensive list because it kind of loses the meaning of this if it's too comprehensive. I pick only the list which are, I feel, and that's how they're communicated, are the best fit, and I obviously have to have those skills. Then I group similar skills together, and I'll show you how that works. And then also the order in which they're mentioned is also important, okay? Usually on job descriptions, the skills that are mentioned at the top are the most important. That's how the job requirement, the job description is created. And step 3, I can either put them in column format or in row format. The row format tends to be, depends how you do that, but can be too condensed. When it's too condensed, it's harder to read. So I personally prefer the column based. It's not over complex in terms of the resume template. And when I talked about before about grouping this, so for example, JavaScript framework skills, React, Redux, and others, Angular, and so on. This is how we group a list of specific skills that they're asking about into one. And that's how we mention them. Any questions?
We had a few, so let me go back. So there was a question about experience and how far should you go back with experience? I think the question said, should you go back 10 years, less or more, kind of there when you're highlighting your experience?
Yeah, great question. So the advised length of experience that we should communicate on this section is between 10 to 15 years. Going beyond 15 years is less advised. What you do beyond 15 years, I don't know if that question was around this, but you just mentioned the title and the dates and the years in which you've worked at that company, not mentioning the bullet points in terms of the experience. All the background and experience you gain from that job will go to the summary and the skill section. It's not lost, but it's very important to focus only on the 10 to 15 most recent years of experience that you have. Anything you did 15 years ago is just less relevant, right? Yeah. Was there another question?
Another question around if we're trying to apply to jobs that are good fits to tailor a resume for each one, how many should we be applying to each week or each day?
Yeah, another good question. Obviously, I mean, if we're getting to these 80% of a fit and more than that, I suppose you'll find between around 5 or so good opportunities per week. That would be a good number. But also if you find less than that, again, applying for more, it's less about the numbers. Again, it's more about the accuracy and finding a good match. If you apply to more, it's not going to increase your chances of landing a job. If I apply for something that's not relevant, you need to feel that this is a good opportunity for you, even if it comes up as a 70%, but you feel you're a good fit, then you should go ahead and apply. But I've seen people that apply that, you know, they think they're a good fit, and then when we run the analysis, you see somewhere between 20 to 30%. And then the devil's in the details. If you go, you dig deeper, you see, hey, they ask for this and that, and I don't have it. And the list goes on. So maybe I'm not such a good fit, but otherwise, if I just mentally read this and say, hey, you know, I need to fill some quota, I need to apply to 20 a week. Again, it's not a good practice, and it won't get you more callbacks.
I think that's great advice. Focus on the ones that you feel like are really close to your job fit and submit really quality there and spend time there. I think that's great. That's great feedback and advice there. But also don't look for, and I know you mentioned, even if you see 70%, but you feel like, don't always worry, we won't see 100% in any kind of job description, right? It's probably
Right. Yeah.
That's great. We had one other question come through. Going back to ATS, is there a preferred file format for the resume? PDF, Word document, Mac Pages?
Both the doc and the PDF work. Both of them work. I've seen once that someone sent me a resume that's a PNG. That's actually a picture from Canva, because Canva also, I think Canva or other website, they have like templates. This doesn't work at all. It's like a black box to the ATS. They don't know how to read it. It's like a single box. I can't open it. I don't know what's in it. And then it gets rejected some point or another.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think that covers. Another question about, is 60%, would you think 60% would be a good enough match?
If it's 60%, again, I mean, 80% is what's advised by research. If you feel, I mean, it's not a pure science, right? If you got a 60% match, but you have a good referral on the team, and we won't talk today about referrals, but if you have a good referral on the team, someone who knows the hiring manager or someone close to the hiring manager, I would still apply. Okay, so try to aim to to the ones that are best fit for you, but also work around the ecosystem in terms of referrals, networking, and all of that, either online or in-person networking events, to be able to get your resume regardless to the employer's hands.
That's great. There's one additional question, and it's, how do we reconcile this percentage with other talks about women always waiting for the 80% match while men apply to less of a match? That might be a conversation for another whole session, but
yeah, that's it's a great topic. I could talk about this for hours. As part of what we do here is with Bullseye, is we help people objectively analyze their fit for a role, regardless of gender or anything else. And many times women underestimate themselves. That's definitely a good observation, and it's been proven by research time and time again. But if you actually use the T-chart analysis, or later on when we release the tools with Bullseye, when you use this, you actually are able to prove through the resume that you qualify for the job. Now, if people, men or regardless of men, if they apply and they don't meet the qualifications, it's not going to really matter if they applied. So if someone applies and they have like 20, 30%, 40% of a match, you don't care if they're a male or a female, they probably won't get your job or won't even get called back. called back. But yeah, that's a good point. Many times when we read the job description and just mentally analyze, am I a good fit or not? What we don't go through this somewhat tedious analysis of actually writing it down. We miss some things. There are some gaps between what we think and what and the background that we come up with, right? So I think it's putting this down on paper will help you actually gauge what you're a good fit for. The research actually says that, yeah, women want about 100% of a fit. If they don't check all the boxes, they don't apply. So going with an 80% and sticking with that actually, and being able to justify that on the resume, will help women, help them in terms of applying to very relevant jobs, and also be able to communicate that on the phone screen and on the interview.
That's great. I think we covered all of the questions so far.
Okay, I'm actually, I don't know how we're doing on time.
We have about not 10 minutes left.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, let's touch upon the quantified achievements. Now, I don't know how many of you've heard of the STAR method. It's a common, it's an advised practice to go about, and I'll explain about this. This relates to the experience section. Now, what I'm explaining here, the STAR method, can help you both on the on articulating the resume, but also in interviews, answering behavioral questions. Again, remember the recruiter, the 30 seconds, the more the bullet points, you make them more concise, specific statements rather than generalized. Quantified achievements, for example, reduced bug throughput time by 30%. That's an example of a quantified achievement. Before I came versus after I did what I did, it went down by 30%, or saved the company $1 million or whatever number of dollar amount by implementing XYZ methodology, or cut development time by half through implementing this and that, or grew a team from 5 to 10 people, or grew by 200% over a period of 6 months. All of those are examples of quantified achievements. Okay, why do we need quantified achievements? And it's not enough to talk in generalized terms, because the recruiter is comparing me to the next person in line, and the more quantified or measurable achievements I give them through the resume, the better I am in helping myself be benchmarked against the next person in line, the next candidate. And the more you're able to speak in quantifiable terms, showcases that you actually totally understand the scope and environment in which you're operating. What is it that I'm doing for the company? What is it that I was hired for? And how I'm able to deliver value. Now, the STAR method, it talks exactly about that. STAR stands for situation, task, action, and results. Situation is, again, describing, from being asked a question, it describes the background, like what was the setting for this problem? What was the problem I was trying to solve, but also what was the setting? And then the task, what have I done to try to solve this? What methodologies or tactics have I used? What was the action in terms of what did I do specifically? And then, most important, what were the results? And you will use the STAR method, in order to articulate most, if not all, of the statements on the experience section. Now, let's see what it looks like. this, you can see by the color coding, what's the problem, what's the solution, what's the result. It's also PSR also and STAR are synonymous. It talks about what's the problem, what the solution you applied, and then what was the result. So it's very important to try to use this and then quantify your achievements. So this is an example from the experience section. Facing 20% end of year sale deficit, spearheaded what I did. A targeted marketing, dynamic pricing overhaul, resulting in 25% boost in sales. Okay. Or I addressed, which is the problem, a critical funding shortfall, renegotiated key customer contracts, and secured pivotal funding in 10 days. So I'm giving here, again, the result, and I'm also quantifying my achievements. Challenged with doubling sales. You can read the rest of it. But what I've heard from people many times is, I don't know how to quantify what I did. I wrote lines of code. Is it, should I just say, you know, how can I even quantify this? In every context and in every role you're in, you have to think, even think back, what's the big picture? What was I hired to do? And when I was hired, there were several problems along the way that I was facing regardless. I had to cover for my manager. I had to solve, you know, bug throughput time, or I was a part of a team of that. I came up with certain innovations. I introduced certain innovations to the team. So within 6 months, it could always be time, like I did something within a specific period of time. I cut it down from 6 months to 3 months, or dollar amount, or resources. I grew a team, or I came up with X number of methodologies and we chose one. And so we increased, you know, sales by X%. There is always, and we have to think that way, a framework in which we're able to quantify our achievements and our results, because this is the bottom line. This is what recruiters and hiring managers are looking for. And this is also the STAR or the PSR format is what you will use in interviews when you're being asked some form of behavioral questions. Always describe the context, meaning this was the problem we were facing as a team. I examined XYZ solutions within X weeks, and then we chose, you know, I composed a solution, suggested, we tried it out, and then we pivoted towards that, and by that we're able to save XYZ, or boost sales by this and that, or double our customer base. This requires some thought around it. Not all the bullet points on the resume have to contain those quantifiable results, but as many as you can is advisable. Now let's look at this. This is an example of a real person we helped, not the real name, but this was their resume. This was a 2-page somewhat resume that looks like this, and using those guidelines, and this is what the software did actually, recreated a resume from scratch from given this information, with a summary statement, the skills and the experience, and all of the experience bullet points are using this information, not making anything up, but also rewording this in the PSR format. Okay, so you can see not more than, this is like a 2-page resume. I wouldn't advise going beyond 2 pages. Many people, when they're just starting out, they think they have to crunch everything to a single page. If you have about 5, 6, 7 years of experience, you can go to 2 pages. That totally makes sense. That's perfectly okay, and you need that space to be able to communicate your achievements. But not go beyond like 5 to 8 bullet points in terms of the skills, and keep the summary short and concise. if we go about this, this was the job description that this person we were helping was applying to at C3AI, a lead to senior software engineer, full stack. I underline here what we talked about before in terms of underlying the skills. What is it that these guys are looking for? They're looking for developing visual tool, application development, full stack, computer science, bachelor, 5 years, object-oriented, data structure, algorithms, so on, JavaScript frameworks. You can see here, dynamic environment, team-oriented, again, written and communication skills, and as preferred, they want Git, Agile, so-and-so, leading and mentoring people, and then experience in scalable web applications. So you see how this information and highlighting this played a pivotal role in the summary. Summary talks about web application development, the master's degree that they're talking about, the education, specializes in project-oriented programming from here, object-oriented programming, data structures, algorithms, strong command over JavaScript frameworks, which they talked about here, and the skills as well. This is an example of the grouped one, JavaScript frameworks grouped to the 3 that this person has. And then along the bullet points in the experience section, also, again, using what you bring to the table, but articulating this in a way that's mostly aligned with the job description.
Keren, a quick time check. We are at time, so just...
Yeah, I'm done. Now it's all open to questions.
Any other questions? I know, team, we are a little bit over, but this was a fantastic session by Keren. So if you all have any questions, please, we are happy to stay here for a couple of minutes more. Feel free to type it in the chat or unmute and ask the questions.
Karen, thank you. This was a great session.
You're
Someone
welcome.
put it in the chat and I couldn't say it better, but it was tons of gold is what was in the chat.
Oh, wow. I'm so happy. Thank you. Thank you.
I think we're just seeing lots of thank yous and great sessions. So, Karen, thank you for your time. Thank you everyone for joining. Great to see all of the new additions that joined for the first time for Women Who Code Philadelphia. We have meetups planned at least once a month. As I mentioned, if you go to Meetup, we will have sessions there. We will follow up and there will be a link about the recording following the session. It would be on the Meetup and linked in the Women Who Code main YouTube, but more information will come out following that. And I think look at through email. Karen also has some different information we might share through that as a follow-up. Lots of LinkedIns were shared throughout the chat. So always good to connect with some others from the session too. Thank you all.
Happy to connect. Thank you, Stacy and Sandia.
Have another one.
hosting.
Excited to start working on my resume. So we have people excited to go start working.
Great.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.